Hey, how's it going, guys? Chris here. Today we're going to be watching Australian couples need upwards of 600k to retire comfortably. And honestly, in my opinion, I think that's a little bit under, well, quite a lot under what I would want to retire with. Obviously, I'm nowhere near retirement. But if I was to retire, in a couple of years or whatever, and I was, 60, 70, I would want a bit more than 600 grand because, you want to be able to travel and experience stuff, if you have grandkids, splurge on them and whatever. But, it's interesting, especially when you've worked, 50 years of your life, and then at most you'll have, 30 years left to live. Well, not at most, but, your typical life expectancy is probably only 25 years of retirement, of which maybe 10 years might be actually good years where you can actually still do stuff. I don't know. I'd love to hear from you guys below, but how much can you really do at 70? There wouldn't be too much you could really do. So imagine being 80. Your health is going to start really tanking, and yeah, I think it's pretty bullshit. You work all these years, and yeah, by the time you actually can retire, it's you've got 5-10 years before you're sick and you can't really enjoy it anymore. Anyway, enough of that ranting. Let's get into it.
There's been some financial relief for retirees in the lead up to Christmas thanks to falling petrol prices and energy rebates. Australia's peak super industry body, ASFA, has been tracking retirement standards for 20 years and says despite the good news last quarter, retirees' budgets are stretched.
2004, Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook. Jetstar took off, and John Howard won a fourth term as Prime Minister. And a single person aged 65 only needed around $32,000 a year to enjoy a comfortable retirement. A couple just over $41,000. In 2024, a single retiree will need nearly $52,000 a year to live comfortably. For couples, it's $73,000.
You think about it, $50,000, right, a year. You're almost talking, that's how much minimum wage basically is now, right? So that's pretty hard to get your head around, right? You retire and you have to have all this money saved up, which a lot of people obviously, they don't start saving until they're, 50, 60 or 40, hopefully. But, most people in their 20s and 30s, which are obviously the best years to compound and, grow your wealth. Most people aren't doing that. They're living their lives, which fair enough, they should. But at the same time, they need to be setting money aside. But yeah, to be able to retire comfortably, you need, 50 grand. And that's I'm pretty sure that's assuming that you have a paid off house. So that's a lot of money. Where's all that money going? I guess, healthcare starts to become pretty expensive once you get old.
ASFA has based these figures on a lifestyle that includes top health cover, a bit of wining and dining, and one domestic holiday a year. It also assumes you own your own home. So what does that retirement pot look like? Well, you'll need $595,000 in super for a single and
aged at 67 retirement. That's crazy. That's so old. Especially when you've worked your whole life, you have to wait until you're 67 to retire with, 600 grand. 600 grand, fair enough. It's not a crazy amount of money. It's definitely attainable. But I feel one overseas holiday a year, how long is that holiday? A week? When you're retired, fuck, man, you want to be holidaying all the time, right? But, you look on the news and you hear it on the news all the time, but, retirees can't even, live at home anymore. They're getting kicked out of the home because rent's so high. If they don't own their own house, rent's $500, $600, $700 a week, right? And on the age pension, I don't even know what the age pension is. It's probably, barely that. So, yeah, if you don't own your own house, it's insane. And this is the problem, house prices keep going up and up and up and up. And it's harder for my generation to get in, right? And all these assumptions are based on that you own your own house. So if you don't even have that in retirement, imagine how much of a tax burden that's going to be on the government to be able to support all these people that can't live, right? Because they don't own their own house, so they have to pay rent. And the way rent's going, and by the time I'm retired, it's going to be $1 million a week, right? So it doesn't make sense. Like, there needs to be something, well, the obvious thing that needs to happen is housing supply needs to be boosted drastically, and this immigration demand just needs to be cut. Crazy amounts need to be cut off.
190,000 for a couple.
Over the past 20 years, we've seen some of those non-discretionary items really significantly leap. For example, electricity is up 150% from when we first started collecting the data.
ASFA says a 50-year-old should have $296,000 in their super right now to be on track for a comfy lifestyle. But the reality is far different.
So at the moment, around 30% of people are at the ASFA comfortable level.
If you're falling short, remember these are just one set of numbers. You could boost your super by just making sure you're in the right investment option and not paying too much in fees. You can compare funds using the ATO's Your Super.
Yeah, I think these are all band-aid fixes, right? Like, obviously people should be investing in their super and whatever, but if they, if everything keeps going up in price, once you hit 50, I'm pretty sure your income starts to taper down, because obviously you want to start, having a bit more of a work-life balance. At my age of, 23 to, let's say 35, you should be going hard at your career, and then, between 35 to 40, 50, you sort of reap the benefits of it. But then once you get to 50, man, like, I couldn't imagine working insane hours when I'm 50, but yeah, that's the reality of a lot of people, right? And I think one of you guys commented on the previous video that, an easy fix to this for individuals, right, is to go work in the mines or go move to a rural mining town, live there and drive in, drive out, or FIFO, whatever you want to say. However, that's a great way to make money for sure, 100%. And, it's good, but the lifestyle aspect of it, like, yeah, they sell you on the fact that you only work half the year, but during that week that you're gone, or 2 weeks that you're gone, you're gone. Like, you can't do anything. If there's like a birthday party, like, all your family relationships, all that stuff is drastically at the cost of making an extra decent bit of money. So either way you go, like, if you want to get a job like locally, do you make the same money? No, not really. Like, it's a lot less, right? But I guess, yeah, you weigh up your pros and cons and work-life balance and whatnot, eh?
Tool. Take advantage of the government co-contribution. If eligible, you could receive up to $500 each financial year.
What the fuck's $500 going to do if you're, below the, if you need $600,000 by the time you retire? What the fuck's $500 going to do between now and when you retire each year? It's pennies.
Sign up to cashback sites that direct rewards to your super. If you're nearing retirement, the age pension can help top up your super income. You can reach out to Services Australia for help.
I think at the end of the day, it's just, it gets harder and harder as you get older, and as time goes on, like, everything's getting more expensive. And if we're on the cusp of a recession, it's getting pretty surreal. Like, jobs are going to start, disappearing, and people are going to start struggling to find work, and that's going to directly affect people's ability to retire in, if they're, struggling in their 30s to lock down good work. That really hurts them, because they're losing out on like 30 years of compound interest, right? And at the end of the day, the earlier you can start investing, the better. But if, the last 5 years we've been in pretty shitty times, it's been hard to get into the property ladder. Hasn't been too bad job-wise, but now it's getting bad job-wise. People are starting to struggle to get jobs, and you hear it, you see it everywhere, Matt. Like, layoffs are starting to really tick up. And if people can't, save and invest now, then the chances of them being able to retire comfortably is just dropping. And especially when this super tax is getting put into effect at $3 million, right? So when I'm ready to retire, if it's already at $600,000 for a comfortable retirement, by the time I'm ready to retire, it's going to be, $3 million, and you're getting people are getting taxed on that $3 million. if they're over the 3 million on unrealized capital gains. It's just bullshit, right? The government just, they're just trying to, they act like they're trying to help you, but they're not. They're only looking after themselves, right? And when they're making, 500, 200 grand a year, they don't care about the struggles of like a normal person making 100 grand a year, or even like, realistically a normal person's making about 80 grand a year, right? So it's tough. It's really tough out there. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.